required for the report. Okay, and then we're going to go into the spreadsheet that we use for the reporting. I'm going to go over that in detail over the course of the class. So what we have here is when to report, what to include the report, and a form version check. So that's what you do when you go to look at the report. You want to make sure you have the right spreadsheet for your group. So when to report, the Exchequer reports are due quarterly and they're cumulative. So the first quarter is the January to March period, and it's due by the end of April. Quarter two, it's January to June, and like I said, they're cumulative, so they build on each other, and it's due by the end of July. Quarter three is January to September, it's due by the end of October. And then the Domesday or quarter four report, which is the full year report, it's due by the end of January. And so what you include in the report, the locked Excel version of the report is due. So there's different versions that are available. There's unlocked versions, there's PDF versions. I honestly don't know why they released all these versions, because the only ones they want are the locked Excel versions of the report. So that's what you need to provide. And then a copy of the ledger or check register for your group for that period. All the bank statements for that time period. And then for the Domesday report, all the above is required, along with a signed copy of the report. You can send it digitally in an email, or we also have a Google Drive that's available for each group, or you can mail it in hard copy. But if you do a digital copy, I have to print it myself for my hard copy files. And so the version check here, there's choose the size of the report based on each type of group. So they come in small, medium, and large size reports. Most shires use small reports. Baronies and principalities use medium reports, and the kingdom uses the large spreadsheet. So unless you're a kingdom, you really don't need to use the large one. The latest version is released from corporate. The current one that is available is AS50 5.0, and the version's found in the contents tab of the report. So we're going to go into that report now, and I can show you all of the glorious detail that the reporting involves.
In addition to the version, will that also show the size there as well?
Yeah.
Because now I'm wondering, which size am I using?
Yeah. So if we go here, and I will share. Oh, what screen am I sharing? What are you seeing here? I'm sorry. Are you seeing
the financial report?
Cloud Strife.
Okay, you are seing the report. Okay.
Contents report, yeah.
Yeah, okay, this is the contents tab. This is the first page of the report. What I'm showing for this demonstration is the small version of the spreadsheet. So if you scroll down here, you'll see the version and the small, and then if it's locked or unlocked. Okay, so this is what you want to find down here. Make sure you're good. And then the contents tab, what you need to do is start filling it out as name of the branch, the seneschal, Exchequer. So if you guys are video game fans, you'll enjoy this a little bit. I'm a big video gamer, so I just kind of made up this report with some video game character names. So 2020 report and quarter one. So, and then it's a cumulative. So this is always going to be cumulative. Previously, a couple of years back, we used to do sequential reports, which means the quarter two report would be for the quarter 2 months only. But we've changed to just a cumulative. So it's everything from the beginning of the year, always. So once you fill this information out, it shows up at the top here. The branch and the period gets calculated from here. So I put in the first quarter here, so it's January to March 31st. Okay, and then we go into what you'll see here is also there's a bunch of shortcuts. These are actually links to other tabs in the workbook, so you can click on any of these to go to any other ones quickly rather than just having to tab over. We'll go, since we're going to go through it, I'm just going to kind of tab over the next one. So this is contact information. It takes the name that you put in for the Exchequer here, but then you have to fill out all the information for the rest of your contact information, your warrant date, address, phone number, membership. In general, for these spreadsheets, whenever you see kind of a light blue field like this, that means it's fillable and you can edit the information. If it's locked or if it's white, it's generally locked. And if you try to make a change to it, you'll get a little pop-up message that's protected. So this is what you want to see, because this means you're using the locked version of the spreadsheet. So that's, and then if you have any other deputies, you'd fill their information out as well. I'm on here. And then moving on, this is the primary account. So this is your bank account information. So you put your name, the name of your bank, the name of your branch as it appears on the bank. So the way the corporate policy is that it should be SCA Inc. and the name of your group. So this group is the Shire of Nibelheim. So this is SCA Inc. Shire of Nibelheim. This is what should be on your bank account. This is the name your bank should have. Whether it's checking or savings or money market or whatever it happens to be, the account number. It's interesting that it says bank signature requirement. This isn't really a bank signature requirement, but this is our requirement. We require 2 signatures on checks. So that's always going to be dual signature, and then the bank statement ending date. And then here at the top, bank balance from the bank statement at the end of the period. So this is where you look at your the bank statement at the last month of the time period you're reporting on.
Thank
So
you very much.
So for the full year, you're going to look at the December 31st, the December bank statement, and that's the amount, the ending amount is what you would put up here in the top. These next 2 sections are for deposits and checks that have not cleared. So you don't see this very often, but if you happen to say collect money for an event in December and you don't get a chance to deposit it until the next year, until January, you kind of have to put it here. Or if you write a check in December and you don't have a chance, it doesn't clear the bank in the same month. You'll look at your statements and everything, you'll see that it doesn't clear. You can be like, oh, okay, I have to account for that. So you just put it here. And again, this is for stuff that hasn't cleared yet. So I've seen some confusion with people putting checks and deposits in here that actually have cleared. But just be aware that this is for things that have not cleared the bank
Edmond,
as of the end. Yeah,
can I ask a question here?
sure.
I get the December to January carryover, but what about, like, say Q2 to Q3? So in Q2, it hadn't, say a check you wrote in Q2 hadn't cleared, but then in Q3 it does. And so since this is a cumulative report, does that mean that we would want to go back and change this page in Q3?
No,
That's
because
confusing.
yeah. So as of say at the in the first quarter, you wrote a check and the check didn't clear. Your first quarter report would still reflect that check being in here, but your second quarter report, you would get rid of that. You would, because it's already because this has to balance with your ledger. So if your ledger shows that check is cleared in that quarter, then you don't have to account for it here.
And then you wouldn't want to say you wrote it in the first quarter and for some reason it didn't clear in the second quarter either. You wouldn't want to add it a second time, right?
No, you just leave it there.
Okay, making sure.
Yeah, because that's always going to be shown on your bank state, on your ledger, that check didn't clear. You're going to have to keep track of that the whole time. So yeah, you wouldn't want to do a double entry in your ledger. So this is kind of the same thing. So once you do that and you look at your ledger and say, okay, you have your balance from your bank statement, and then you say, okay, this check didn't clear, then that ledger balance is going to be modified by that check. So this is my bank statement balance, but then I have that outstanding check for 100. So my ledger balance should be 4087. If I didn't do that, then your ledger, it doesn't balance here in the adjusted account balance. So you have to account for that. So you want to make sure that you keep track of that with your ledger, so you can do that. So if you don't do that, then none of the rest of the spreadsheet will work. So this ledger balance has to be the same, has to be kind of evened out here. So I'm just going to undo that and get it back in there. And then we're going to move on. Just briefly down here at the bottom, this is the check signer information for your bank, all the people on the signature card. So the people that are required have to be the Kingdom Exchequer or a representative, which is usually the Principality Exchequer, and an officer from the group. So you have either, whether it's the seneschal, your marshal could be on there, but the financial policy say an officer from the group have to be on there. So you can do it that way, and it's also helpful if you have an additional signer, you can have any additional signers you need, but those are the minimum required ones, and they all have to be members. And you have to be current. So you want to make sure you keep everybody who's on the bank account has to be kind of up to date. You want to make sure you keep them going. Okay, and then the secondary accounts. Not all branches have a second account, but some branches do have a savings account that does accrue interest. So and there's a question on this one too as well, whether it asks about interest being earned or not, yes or no. Usually checking accounts don't earn interest. And then if you have a savings account, that usually does incur interest at a pretty low rate, but it's there. So you can say yes to that and then enter the information similar to how you did on the other page. It's more condensed here, but it doesn't keep track of the checks and check numbers and things like that, just total numbers here. So that's available for secondary accounts. And then, so we're going to go right into the next one, which is the balance tab. This is kind of the meat and potatoes of the report. This is where you see where your report is done or not, ultimately. So what you have here in the top are the assets. Oh, I tried to change that and it didn't work. So this is all your cash assets and regalia and things like that. You have your start numbers here. Okay, and these two are the only ones you can enter here in this field. The rest of them are calculated from other tabs. And so you'll see here just where it says front page. These are the different tabs that are in this spreadsheet, and this is where the information comes from. So that's where you fill that information in. And the thing that's very important to do when you're starting a report is that the end numbers from the previous year have to be the same as the start numbers for the next year. So this should be a full year report. This should be a 2019 report. So I'm just going to say actually Q4 real quick, just to change that whole date real quick. And then so this is a 2020 report. So for my 2021 report, if I were going to start this from scratch for my first quarter and going forward, my start cash has to equal 4087. If I don't do that, it's going to throw everything off. And then you also have to, everything down this line has to be the same. So this is a prepaid expense. I'll go into those in a little bit in tab 5, but if you had it in the end number, it has to be in the start number. So make sure that those are lined up. You can check your reports. And then I will also get those numbers from the corporate office, because sometimes they make changes to them that they usually don't, but sometimes they will make adjustments to the final reports from the previous year. So keep an eye on those. Liabilities are pretty rare. You don't really have too many of them, but they do happen. But it's the same thing, start and end. If you have something in the end column for 1 year, it has to be in the start column for the next year. And then when you get down here to your net worth, your change in net worth is basically what this entails: assets minus liabilities. And then that's basically your bake information and the calculated things that come in get put there. And then this is compared against the rest of the report, where you actually enter all your expenditures and your income from different sources. So these are you see how this is green and these numbers are the same? This means your report's balanced and you're done. But if they're not balanced, then you get this nice little goldenrod color, and it'll tell you how much you're off by over here. And so that's an indication like, okay, if something's not right, we need to kind of figure out where we need to edit things to make the report balance. So we'll start going into the next one. This is where we start putting in information about our account. So the top area is the income section. The only thing you need to edit in this area is if your bank account earns interest. This will get put in directly in this blue cell here. Everything else is pulled in from other tabs. And again, it mentions here where those are listed from. So those are the income, and so I'll show you those in a little bit as we go down the line where those come from. And then you have the expenses. So these are all the things you put in for your events. So if you have food that you bought for a feast or general supplies, the site fees that you paid, then these would go in here in the blue sections. There's a couple that are white that aren't editable because they pull in from other fields as well, from other tabs. So, but this is generally where you're going to be entering most things that you pay for. If it's office supplies, for officers in the group, or it's activity related event things. And then there's also some transfer. There's some tabs about transferring checks between groups, whether it's from the kingdom or to the kingdom, to the corporate office, to other SCA groups. Those get pulled in from other tabs as well. So the asset tab. This is what we call the dreaded 5A. This gave me the most trouble when I was learning how to be an Exchequer. And so basically what it is so most of the time you use it for prepaid expenses. So if you, like for example, I wrote a check for an event that happens in 2021, but you wrote a check for it in 2020 and it cleared. Then this is where you would put it, because you're paying for something that hasn't happened yet. So you put it in here as a current amount. And so if this happens to be, if you happen to have something in here in this current amount column, or any of these current amount column, for at the end of your year report, your quarterly or your cumulative report at the end of the year, that has to stay on the report in the prior amount. So if you start the new report for 2021 and you had something here, the current amount, then the 2021 report will have to have this number in the prior amount column. And that's how it gets from here to here in the start number. So that makes your start number the same as I mentioned earlier. So you want to make sure you get that number into that prior amount column to make your start numbers line up. And then you will offset that with an expense. The only thing that's kind of annoying about that is it stays there because you had it as a prior amount. It's always going to be there for the next year. You can't take it off the report. But the way you clear it is your current amount's going to be nothing if it was paid for, and you would expense it as a site charge or something like that. So that's how you clear it off, but you have to keep it on the prior amount column to keep your start numbers the same, because the start numbers always have to stay the same. The other assets that come in is if you have a site deposit that you put in, that you'll get back. You kind of put that in here, and that goes along the same kind of rules with that. So keep that in mind. It can be a little tricky. So if you come across that in your reports and you need help, please reach out and I will try to help you get that straightened out. There's the Liabilities tab, 5B. This is pretty rare. It's there, but you generally don't have liabilities that you have to worry about. If you owe, for an example, this is the payable, and somebody sends in receipts to you for reimbursement, but you haven't reimbursed them yet, you technically owe them money. Usually that's paid in within the same time period, so you don't generally put it in here. But if it does happen, so like at the end of December they decided to send their receipts to you and you haven't written them a check yet, you technically owe them money, so you have to record that. But it's pretty rare. It doesn't really happen very much, so don't worry too much about this section here. So then we'll go into transfers in. You won't see transfers in too much at the local level. This is for when you receive money from another SCA group. Generally, what happens with these is you'll get, say, certain wars like Potrero War, Australia, Great Western War have volunteer hours. And those volunteer hours get logged by that group. And you have to, when you sign up for those volunteer hours, you designate the group that it goes to, that the money goes to. So you actually will earn money for your branch if you sign up for that. So what happens with this is that those groups will then write a check to the kingdom. So like I'll receive a check written to the West Kingdom that will show me a breakdown of all the different branches that received volunteer hours. And then I will write checks to those branches from the kingdom to say, oh, Vinhold got $21 or whatever for volunteer hours. So this is from within the kingdom. So this is what you're going to see is checks from the West Kingdom for that. But if you do happen to receive a check directly from outside of the kingdom, from another kingdom or another branch within another kingdom, then you will record it down below here. This is pretty rare also because most checks are written to the kingdom. But we do have instances, for example, last year in 2020, we paid the corporate office for insurance, but these events were canceled. So the corporate office offered to reimburse the groups for those insurance. So this is income from outside the account, from outside the kingdom. It's technically from the corporate office. So this is where you would record it down here. And then the next one is transfers out. This is more commonly used. And so as you may or may not know, there's a non-member surcharge that gets charged at events for $5 a person. That's a non-member that comes through the gate. That gets recorded, and you have to send a check to the kingdom for that amount. So I just put an example here. This event had say 20 non-members, and so that's $100. So that's a check that gets written to the kingdom for $100, and it gets recorded and then transfers out within the kingdom. And then my responsibility at the kingdom level is to send a check to the corporate office every month for those non-member charges. And then I would record that here in this section here. This is when you write checks to the corporate office. This happens for insurance purposes. If a site, more and more sites are asking for additional insured riders. The corporation has $1 million insurance policy, but most sites want to be named insured on that certificate so that they're covered for sure. The corporate office charges $50 to issue that certificate for that time period you're having an event. So we write them a check for $50, and that's what happens. And then I write the non-member checks, anything that basically goes to the corporate office. And also for Demir, I see you on here. For the heralds, you're writing the check to the Laurel, which is in the SCA. So you're transferring that check out to the SCA. So that's what you would put it in this section. But if you're transferring something out to another kingdom, if you're paying out to another kingdom for some reason or other, then this last section is where you would have put it, which is pretty rare at the local level, but it does happen more at the kingdom level than anything else. And then we're going to tab 11. So 11A is where you have fundraising events. So in order to record fundraising income, you actually have to have a fundraising activity. So whether it's a bake sale or you have a fighter auction or a silent auction or whatever activity it is, you have to list what that activity was and what event it was at. So for internal fundraising. And then there's also external fundraising, which doesn't happen very often, if ever. I've rarely seen SCA fundraising happen outside of an event, but if you want to have a car wash for your branch, then by all means, go for it. And you can, this is where you record that fundraising money. Okay. There's a donations information. You'll notice that it's not blue, so you can't actually do it here. It comes from another tab. It actually clicked right over to it. It comes from 11C. Even though this is a small workbook, it doesn't have a shortcut to 11C, which is where you put direct donations that come in, but it does exist in the tabs. So that may be something I'll need to talk to corporate about changing, is getting that shortcut put in, because it does exist here. But that's where donations come in directly from there. We have demos from time to time. Generally don't charge fees from demos, but if some city or group or whatever wants to pay your branch for a demo that you put on, then this is where that money comes from. So, or money gets recorded. So where it's from, what you did, if you did a parade, you did a demonstration, whack a night, whatever it is, and then how much they paid you. So this is all the fundraising kind of stuff going in there. And then 11B is where you actually have the money from events come in. So if you have gate money that's deposited after an event, this is where it goes. So your money in, and then, so this is cash at gate, but then you also sometimes have PayPal. Excuse me. So if you have a feast, sometimes you sell feast tickets ahead of time in PayPal. So you'll put that in, that money here, even though, so the way PayPal works, if you're not aware, is that people pay either online or at the gate through PayPal, and that goes into the PayPal fund on PayPal. Once the event is closed out, the PayPal deputies transfer that money from the PayPal account to the West Kingdom PayPal account, the actual bank account that we use. Then what I will do is write a check from that PayPal account to whatever branch had that PayPal income. You wouldn't record it in transfers, but you would record it here as PayPal income. And then it's going to be an odd number. It's not going to be the same amount as you charged for your site fee, because or fees ticket fee, because there are fees that are incurred with PayPal. We don't pass them on to the groups, but we do lose a little bit of money in translation there. So you're going to see odd cent amounts come through on those checks. Okay. And this also, it's just another note. Technically, West Kingdom Welcoming Committee that Duke Frederick puts on, it's money that's earned at the gate, even though it's kind of a donation. It's earned at the gate, so this is where you would actually put it. You'd put it in the gate event money, which is noted as WKWC. And then the 11C is where you have donations come in. So if a person directly donates money to the branch, you put it in there. Or there's certain SCA groups are actually subsidiaries, and they don't use the same tax ID as the SCA. So you have to name it as a donation to your branch. Or if you're receiving, yeah, that's what that's for. Okay. Expense details generally don't have much here. Bad debts, it's very rare to have these kind of things. The only thing you would have occasionally here is fees and honoraria. These are fees that you paid for a service that someone outside the SDA does. So if you come in, if you pay, say, a teacher to come in to give a lecture, or a dance group to come perform at your event, then this is where you would put this. This is where you would enter that organization, what they did for your group, and then how much you paid. There's more information here for expenses. Non-SDA insurance is pretty much it's there if it's needed, but I've never seen anything here for that purpose. Other expenses, this is pretty rare to use, but occasionally this may need to get used to kind of adjust for previous things that weren't accounted for on previous reports. And so we'll work through that if it's needed to enter it. And this last section here, if your branch makes a donation to another 501(c)(3) nonprofit, you have to list that here, and you have to obtain that federal ID number from that nonprofit and enter it here, because that gets all this, ultimately all of these spreadsheets and all this information, this accounting information, gets shown to the IRS. And so it's all you have to be accountable for pretty much everything. So we got to make sure you get all that information done. This tab 13 is the financial committee. It varies by each group. Some groups have the Seneschal, Exchequer, and all paid members. Others have basically people that are active. And if it's a higher level group like a principality or a kingdom, sometimes baronies, Prince and Princess, Queen of the West is with us, and she is, of course, on the Kingdom Financial Committee. So that's that. And this last section here, this is the fund list. Most local groups don't have dedicated funds, but if you do, for example, have a fundraiser for something, you have to name that purpose of that fundraiser, and those funds can only be used for that purpose. So if you say you have archery, a fundraiser for archery equipment, that's the only use that those funds can be used for, and so you would add it onto this fund list, add the purpose and how much that is, and then excuse me, this equals the same up here. This is green because it matches, it's balanced. But your cash at the end of the period has to add up in all these different funds. So say I had the archery equipment, $100. So this actually, it doesn't balance anymore because you have to have that amount. So if I do 309, sorry, oops, 3087 or 39, I'm sorry, 3987. Then that balances now. It goes back to your total amount that you had in your cash. So, and it gives you another total down at the bottom, how that adds up. And the last one, there's a comments tab. So if you have any comments or questions about your report when you're submitting it, you can kind of throw them in there. And then if you go back to the contents tab, it tells you if you're, it also gives you another indication that your report's balanced. So it's in green and it says it's balanced, and then the fund list is balanced. So they're both green and they say they're balanced, and everybody's happy. And that's pretty much it in a nutshell, what the report entails. So I'm going to go ahead and close this and stop sharing my screen, and then we can go over some questions and if you have anything that you want to ask.
I just want to say this is way easier than when I did it in the 90s.
No, that's good.
It was all paper in the 90s.
Wow.
I have a question for you. I was reviewing one of the reports that our Exchequer sent, right? And I noticed a couple of things that I feel that could be improved on the spreadsheet itself, right? And I was wondering how I could make those types of suggestions to be considered for, I don't know, maybe making something or another easier.
So those, what I'll go to the corporate Exchequer, because they determine at the corporate level the same spreadsheet that everybody uses. So yeah, and I can't make any changes to it. It's all locked, even for me. So you've got to go. Anything that needs to be changed has to go through the corporate office. And I don't know if they want to go, if they need to go to the board or not for that, but or if they have the ability to do that on their own. That's all above my pay grade.
Everyone, you should ask questions, otherwise he's gonna have to hear me over and over again.
Well, that's okay, because you may be asking the same questions we would. I just have to say this is most definitely demystified now, because to me, it looked, the couple of times I've seen it as essential, it has looked like it is the most complicated thing in the world. And at this point, and I have an associate of business and accounting. And at this point, I would feel very comfortable going through one of these and filling them out. It makes sense now. Thank you.
Oh, good. I'm glad that I was able to help that. That was the that's the point of the class. I'm very, very glad I was able to make this clear for you. It looks very complicated. There's a lot of moving parts in it, but once you get down to kind of the nuts and bolts of what you need to fill in, it's pretty simple actually. So yeah.
Gonna say maybe I have a master's in math and this thing still is struggling for me. So I think maybe I needed the degree in accounting to make the difference.
Not necessarily.
No, I'm just kidding. It's there are some very interesting things about it, and I know that I keep making mistakes. Edmond, I was just looking over mine as we were going through it, and I thought, oh look, I didn't change the statement date there on the Domesday. Okay. Anyway. I just have a interesting, curious question. Where did the word Domesday come from? If
Doomsday?
My understanding, it's a take on Doomsday.
Got it.
But I'm not really sure.
I think it's something that Moira brought up a little bit when she commented as being essential. I think I'm essential for one of the baronies here in the West. And I think it's really important for essential to do to actually look at the report that your Exchequer sends and make sure that everything looks okay and stuff like that too, and become familiar with it, because sometimes your Exchequer might not know what to do with it in a certain case. Maybe you can help answer that question, or you can brainstorm it together or catch a mistake,
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
As the Kingdom Exchequer, it's my responsibility as one of those bird people to help out everybody. So if any questions, comments, concerns, my door is always open to help out, because ultimately, your success is my success. We want to make sure that the kingdom keeps moving, and the corporate side of it is important, because we can't do what we need to do without the corporate support. So we got to fall in line with all those rules and laws and everything like that. So yes, definitely here to make sure all the parts are moving correctly.
And the Domesday Book, by the way, was the record of the Great Survey of England and Wales, ordered by William the Conqueror in 1086.
Ah.
So I guess it's kind of a take on that.
Okay, cool. That's good to know.
I thought it was more of a reference to like doomsday, like the end of the world, you know.
Yeah, I think that's
Well, in
that's
some
kind of
cases
the
it might be.
And,
Yeah,
and this
it-
report's like all 4 reports in one, right? So
yeah, exactly.
it'll be your doom. Quick question. This might be good to know. Who are the people who should be signing a copy of the bank statements and reports? And when should those people sign them to send to up the chain of command?
Okay, so the bank statements have to be reconciled monthly, every month, and so it gets reconciled to your ledger, and so the Exchequer will reconcile the ledger, the bank statement to the ledger, and sign it, and then they will send it to their seneschal to sign it. Okay, so that's the process. That's the requirement from corporate for doing your bank statement and keeping on top of those. And then, as I mentioned in earlier, just in the quick PowerPoint earlier, when you send in your reports, you send in your bank statements and your ledger. So those all come together with your report.
So this may not be going this way much longer. I'm sure we're all hopeful. But is affirming via email with a virtual signature acceptable at this time?
It is no longer acceptable. So, well, I mean, for what purpose?
Well, you just talked about monthly bank statement, and I'm also thinking about the quarterly reports that they're. Anyway, go ahead. What is and what isn't?
Okay. So for signatures on your between your seneschal and your exchequer for your group, that's between you. However you want to do that, if whether you're signing a paper copy or you're printing it out, signing it, scanning it, and sending it to your seneschal. However you want to do that, that's fine. That's as you know, you maintain a paper copy and you maintain the digital copy. You have redundancy there. That's what needs to happen. For reports, you only need to send the electronic version to me for the first 3 quarters. Okay, so I don't need the signatures or anything like that for the first 3 quarters, but for that Domesday report, I need both. I need to have the actual, the Excel version here that we fill out, as well as a paper copy that's signed by you and your seneschal. And that's for my physical hard copy files that I have to keep as the Exchequer of the kingdom.
Okay, thank you.
There previously was, a loose policy of us saying, if you didn't have any activity, you can send an email to the Kingdom Exchequer, and say, oh, no, we don't have any activity, we're done. I basically got told at the corporate level that's not acceptable. We can't do that. You have to have that record of accounting. You have to have big statements. You have to have this report filled out that showed you didn't have any activity. So keep those reports coming in, even if nothing happened.
And just in case, well, I don't know that happened very well this last year. I imagine you'll be reaching out to me if I need to update some stuff. But so that I'm clear, it's the report that needs to be signed, not the statement the bank statements that need to be signed. So the electronic banks, the bank statements coming to you electronically should be fine. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, I thought that you said you needed to see a copy of the reconciliation on the back of the bank statement signed each month. So I misunderstood.
I mean, no, but you need to have that. You do need to do that for your own records. You have to keep them reconciled.
This is just a quick announcement. We have about 10 minutes before the quarantine activity. So, but we're good till then.
Okay.
One follow-up on that, Edmond. If there is nothing happening in that month for the local, is there any reason to reconcile that necessarily?
You still have to do that. So yeah, you're going to be,
Okay.
your ledger's not going to show anything. So it's going to be whatever your balance is minus 0 equals the same balance.
Okay, all right.
It's just going to be simpler, but it's still
Yes,
there.
exactly.
And I think that your monthly report's probably not going to have a whole lot of changes from the previous month either if there's no activity or sorry, previous quarter if there was no activity during that
Right.
time.
Right.
And so you just might have to go get those bank statements, keep them in, the binder or whatever file you have for them, and then, there you go.
Yeah,
Yeah,
not
my
a
re-
problem. I actually, last year we would have had zero activity except a donation that came in December, didn't get to me till the beginning of January. So other than that, we would have literally had nothing to do. Am I starting to sound familiar, by the way, Edmund?
Oh yeah, it's totally fine. You're not the only one.
Yep.
So yeah.
Hey, just think, I'm a seneschal of one of these groups, guys. Can't be all that bad. That was supposed to be sarcasm. I hope.
Mine is more of a question of understanding, because with nothing to do, I honestly have been like, well, there's nothing to do. And now I'm recognizing, oh yeah, monthly, I need to do this. It's all about record keeping. And now that I understand that, I'll make sure that happens.
Excellent.
So, another question, because I'm going to keep coming up with them as long as no one else are asking them. How long should branch groups keep documents such as the bank statements and copies of reports and stuff like that within
7
their
years.
accounts?
The record retention policy is 7 years for everything. So I mean, as it is, I have actually got quite a bit of stuff that came to me as the Kingdom Exchequer, a couple bank boxes that I'm actually going to go through and shred, because we don't need to have it. But if you have anything that's usually at the local level, you don't have to deal with sanctions and firing people or anything like that. But anything that those actually can't get purged, they have to stay permanently. But generally at the local level, you don't have to worry about any of that kind of stuff.
Are you talking about firing people like an officer did something bad or something?
Yeah. Yep. So I think we're going to go ahead and leave it from there. Unless you have any more last questions, we can.
Thank you.
You're totally welcome.
Oh,
Really
thank
did
you,
help
Edmund.
demystify.
Thank you. And thank you for all the support that you've been doing over the time too. I appreciate that very much.
No problem. I'm happy to help. And I'm glad I was able to clear up this mysterious spreadsheet.
I just didn't realize so much of it was automated. And I think that's part of it. I'm looking at all these fields and thinking, oh my God, how does this all come together?
Yeah.
It really is nice.
Why won't
And
that
it's
one let me change it?
yeah, exactly. Well, let me change it. But it's also nice that it's automated way up at the corporate level.
Yes.
So yeah,
It's very
not
uniform
something
across the
that
board.
we have to worry about. And it's going to be the same everywhere. So
Yep.
it's great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you everybody for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Edmund.
I will see you in the real world at some point.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop recording now.